I've been using GPT-5 for the past couple days, and I wanted to test whether GPT-5 is actually an improvement on the current models for writing YouTube scripts and just writing in general. And today, I want to compare writing scripts using GPT 5.0, Claude Sonnet 4, and NotebookLM. NotebookLM and Claude being the two models that have stood out in terms of creative writing. So first, I'll write an educational script, and then we'll do the same for a documentary script to test all types of videos. And to be on equal playing ground, I want to give these three models training data on what a good YouTube script looks like. So I downloaded the transcript of my full YouTube script writing course that got over 250,000 views and uploaded it into each model for training. Let's start writing with GPT 5.0. So I'm going to be using the same prompt for each large language model and see how it writes the hook, the opening sections, and ultimately whether the fleshed out script is actually better and which one does it best. So the prompt I'm going to use starts with, you are a YouTube script writer with 10 years of experience. We're going to assign it a role. And then I'm going to tell it I'm making a video titled How to Script a Killer YouTube Video. I now need to develop a detailed section by section blueprint that will form the foundation of my script. I give instructions on the hook, instructions on how to write the section by section, how to write transitions, and the visual support framework. Now let's see what it gives us. So here we can see it wrote a couple hook approaches: shocking statement plus curiosity. One killer YouTube video could completely change your life. Bold claim that sparks disbelief, promises proof, and a blueprint for replicating viral success. Transition: I've spent the past 5 months dissecting the scripts behind millions of views. Today I'll show you the exact process to script a video that gets clicked, watched, and shared. Second one, if your videos aren't getting views, it's probably not a thumbnail, it's your script. So this one's not as good as the first one. 70% of your video success is decided before you even press record. Today, I'm going to walk you through my proven script writing system, the same one that's helped channels at hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Actually, the hooks are not bad, especially for this first one and for this third hook. And of course, it took the different hook approaches based on the script writing guide that I fed it. Now let's see what it gives us for the section by section breakdown. It starts with why script at all. Review satisfaction is the number one metric. Scripts boost information clarity, entertainment value, and emotional impact. Saves time in filming and editing. Alex Hormozi example. Okay, start with the title and idea, crafting the hook, writing the body, crafting the outro and call to action, editing your script, and visual support framework, which is actually not that bad of an outline. It actually performed a lot better than I'd expected to. This is a solid outline that you can use and turn into a full script. It even gives you the duration. It gives you a closing transition from section to section, and it follows the instructions pretty well. Now let's try the same prompt on Claude and see the main differences that it gives us. So you can see here, hook approach A, authority plus promise. In the last 9 months, I've written YouTube scripts for 40 plus educational channels, helped them gain millions of views and generate millions in revenue. One of my clients went from 5,000 to 16,000 subscribers in just 5 months. But here's what most people don't realize about YouTube success. This first line is actually really strong, but this second line in terms of proof isn't that great. You can see over here, hook approach B, one killer YouTube script can completely change your life. It can give you the momentum to go from 0 to 100K subscribers in record-breaking time, just like many of your favorite creators who became successful because of one viral video. It's actually not too bad too. Most YouTubers spend 80% of their time on filming and editing and only 20% on the script. But the top creators do the exact opposite. And there's a reason why Alex Hormozi said he now spends 4 weeks on research instead of 4 weeks on editing. I don't really like how they just brought in Alex Hormozi out of nowhere. This video isn't on Alex Hormozi. So let's look over here, section by section breakdown. Why scripting actually matters. You see here 4 types of YouTube videos, right? Viral VSLs, story videos, challenge videos, documentary videos, outlier theory for video ideas. Okay, not as good. The hook formula that never fails. Next section will be open loop body structure. And then it goes to the call to action formula. So this outline isn't actually as good because the video title is How to Script a Killer YouTube Video. And really what I'm looking for in the first couple sections is to validate the click immediately. So I say why scripting matters, and then we randomly talk about the 4 different types of YouTube videos. This isn't information that the viewer necessarily needs in order to understand how to write a killer YouTube script. Or outline theory isn't something that they need to understand in order to write a killer YouTube script. So actually this outline isn't as good. So far GPT-5 is better than Claude. Let's see what NotebookLM gives us. So once again, I uploaded the course and has kind of a summary, and we'll give it the same prompt and see what it gives us. Okay, let's look at some of the hooks that NotebookLM has came up for us. So, transformational question hook. Have you ever wondered what makes certain YouTube videos explode with millions of views while others with seemingly great content barely get watched? Okay, transition. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on the single most overlooked factor behind YouTube success, the script. By the end of this video, you'll have everything you need to write a killer YouTube script that gets you millions of views in just half the time, just like I've done for over 40 channels. Okay, let's see hook 2. In the last 9 months, this credibility approach again, and it only gave me 2 approaches for the hooks. And even just looking at this very first hook, this does feel more GPT. It doesn't really feel like it followed any of the guidelines, especially since the opening line doesn't validate the click of how to make a killer YouTube script. So NotebookLM isn't doing that great of a job at writing hooks so far. Let's look at the section by section. So you can see section 1, the unseen power, why scripting is a non-negotiable, and then it writes a specific transition for this. Section 2, the foundation idea and the title first. And then we go into mastering the market, researching for impact. Okay, and then it has some of that information. Section 4, crafting an irresistible hook, and then it gives certain examples based on this and transition. And then section 5, which is structuring your video, the body section. And section 6, you can see the final push, driving action and growth, outro, and call to action. But you can see over here, one thing that stands out from the NotebookLM output is that it's a lot longer and it's a lot more detailed. It even gives specific sources on where it took the information for each of these points. But one thing that really stands out in terms of the writing is that the writing's a lot more complex. It talks about mastering the market, researching for impact. Or for point 1, its title is The Unseen Power, Why Scripting is a Non-Negotiable. You can see all of those are pretty big words. And generally, when we're writing for YouTube videos or creative writing in general, we want to keep the language pretty simple so that the audience can understand it. So far, in terms of writing hooks and the section by section outline, GPT-5 actually outperforms because the structure is a lot more closer to what I would actually write in a YouTube script. And the hooks are a lot more punchy and a lot stronger. Now let's test the actual writing of each of these models. Now I'm going to go back to the same chat for ChatGPT-5. And I'm going to use this prompt. Now I need to develop a main body sections for my YouTube videos. I want to transform my outline into an engaging, value-rich script that maintains viewer retention. I give it instructions on how to write the section introduction and the main point setup. I give it my why, what, how writing framework, which is setting the stakes, presenting the solution, providing proof. I teach it some engagement dynamics to make this script actually interesting, and how to create momentum, visual support, some conversational elements, and maintaining flow, and how to write the section conclusion and the transition, just to give it a little bit of fuel. And I really want to test how good it is in terms of following these specific instructions. And the reason these prompts are so comprehensive is because I also want to test whether GPT is great at following the instructions that I give it. So let's see what it comes up with. And immediately you can see how fast GPT-5 is. So let's read the first section of how it writes it. Here's something most people completely miss when they wonder why their videos aren't taking off. It has nothing to do with your editing software, your camera gear, or how often you post. It's about something that happens before you hit record. That's a pretty good open loop because there's some sort of curiosity here. Right now, there are 2 types of creators on YouTube. One group spends hours filming, improvising, and hoping something sticks. The other group, they step in front of the camera with a plan so tight it feels effortless, like the video is meant to go viral. The difference? They understand how scripting drives viewer satisfaction, YouTube's single most important element. And then there's the why, what, how. You can see it follows the exact framework. Getting this wrong means you'll spend weeks cranking out videos that quietly sink into YouTube's graveyard. But nail it, suddenly you've got people watching longer, commenting more, and sharing your videos with their friends. And YouTube algorithms take notice. The what is scripting, whether it's full word for word or bullet point planning, isn't about sounding robotic. It's about making sure every second of your video moves the story forward and keeps viewers locked in. And how proof, take the Instantly AI channel, where they started scripting strategically, their retention shot up, and they added thousands of paying users from just a handful of videos. One script alone generated 6 figures in revenue. And it's not just them. Alex Hormozi spends more time on pre-production and scripting than editing because he knows that's where the leverage is. In terms of this, the how section is kind of shaky because the examples here, Instantly AI, isn't something that everyone knows. Yes, it's part of the case studies that I have, but it's not necessarily an example that's broad appeal and that everyone can use it. So that's minus points for GPT-5. But actually, the writing is pretty good and it produces the outline super duper fast. Now let's test the exact same prompt on Claude. So now you can see Claude is a little bit slower in terms of giving out this output. But let's read the first section. Why scripting actually matters. Here's something that completely blew my mind when I first discovered it. Most creators think YouTube success is about fancy cameras, perfect lighting, or even going viral. But after writing scripts for 40 plus channels and seeing the data behind millions of views, I realized there's something more fundamental that separates the creators getting 100 views from those getting 100,000 views. There are essentially 2 types of content creators right now. The first group films first, thinks later, they set up the camera, hit record, and hope something magical happens in post-production. They're spending 80% of their time editing and only 20% planning what they actually want to say. Then there's the second group. These creators seem to have cracked some secret code. Their videos just work. People watch them all the way through, comments explode, subscribers pour in, and here's the crazy part, their production quality isn't necessarily better. The difference, they understand that YouTube isn't actually a video platform, it's a retention platform. So you can see here, the payoff here doesn't feel as strong as GPT-5, so that's minus points for Claude. Plus, you can see kind of the core differences here. You can see that GPT writes it very systematically, right? It writes the transition and then scenario and contrast setups, why, what, how. So it presents to you exactly how it writes it. Whereas Claude kind of dumps it all in you and it doesn't feel like it's necessarily following the structure. Now let's try the same prompt for NotebookLM. Okay, so now looking at the NotebookLM output. Here, video body section 1, idea, title, and thumbnail. So I'm kind of confused why it gave us the idea, title, and thumbnail as section 1. Because in section 1, you can see over here, the topic is why scripting is a non-negotiable. And then you can see it kind of shifts towards instead talking about idea, title, and thumbnail. But let's kind of just look at the writing. But here's something most people completely miss. And it's the very first step to crafting a video that truly explodes on YouTube. I don't really say truly explodes. What I'm about to share might seem counterintuitive at first, especially if you're just used to hitting record and figuring things out later. I don't even really like this initial part here because hitting record and figuring things out later, that might not actually resonate for most of the audience. Whereas you can see kind of the open loop and transitions that GPT-5 or even Claude wrote was kind of more broad appeal. So if you're not necessarily hitting record and figuring things out later, then this video might alienate that portion of the audience. See, there are two types of content creators right now. One group is constantly pushing out content week after week, hoping to overwhelm the YouTube algorithm with sheer volume. They'll set up their camera, hit film, talk for 10 minutes, post, and on to the next video. This usually results in the video doing all right. The other group, however, takes time, spend weeks, even months meticulously crafting something spectacular before they even think about filming, right? This is actually pretty good, but the problem is, number one, the main point is totally wrong. And number two, it's actually taking my script from how to make a killer YouTube video that is the very first video that I posted on this channel, and it's taking the exact same script and just giving it back to me. So it's not doing any kind of creative thinking. Honestly, I didn't even feed it the transcript of that specific video, but you can see that it's just taking from that, which isn't super helpful when you're trying to create a completely new video. So right now, my initial diagnosis is that ChatGPT 5 is actually the best in terms of writing these long form scripts by giving it information on, number one, how to write a YouTube script, and then asking it to write a hook, the outline, and fleshing out the script. It actually gives you a better base because the outline is a lot stronger and the writing is actually a lot more in my voice, and you can see it's a lot more structured. But even though ChatGPT 5.0 is best for writing educational scripts, but what about for storytelling documentaries? So for writing documentary scripts, I'm going to use a slightly different prompt, and I'll kind of explain the prompt. So it first starts off with, you're a YouTube scriptwriter with 10 years of experience. I'm writing the hook, opening section, and the section by section outline for my documentary titled The Rise and Fall and Rise Again of Elon Musk. So I want to write a documentary about Elon Musk. There's plenty of information out there on him, so it should do pretty well. And in terms of the hook framework that I give it, I tell it to write in chunks. So I write the first chunk, the second chunk, the third chunk, and the fourth chunk here, right? With each chunk having a specific purpose in the hook, because the hook for writing documentaries is a little bit different from writing hooks for educational videos. And then I give it certain information on certain guidelines to follow, and I want the story to follow a hero's journey. So let's see how ChatGPT 5 performs. And immediately you can see, once again, it's pretty fast. And super interestingly, for each specific chunk that I tell it to write, it says option 1, shocking statement. In 2008, Elon Musk was broke, sleeping on a friend's couch. And it gives me option 2, and it gives me option 3. And it gives me specific visuals and the bridge, which I asked it to. And it writes an option for the second chunk, and then the third chunk, and the fourth chunk, and it gives me specific visuals for that. Which is super interesting because it writes 3 variations of the very first line. And that might be because it understands that the first line of a YouTube video is actually the most important. So let's see what is actually any good. He's been called a genius, a fraud, a savior, and a villain, sometimes all in the same week. This is a story of how Elon Musk fell from grace and rose again. His journey isn't just about rockets and electric cars, it's about risking everything over and over, because every time Musk reached the top, something or someone tried to take him down. In the mid-2000s, Musk was a Silicon Valley millionaire turned near-bankrupt CEO. He just poured his PayPal fortune into Tesla and SpaceX, 2 companies most investors thought would fail. And when the money ran out, there was only one last shot. What happened next didn't just save Musk, it redefined what was possible in tech, energy, and space. But success is never permanent. From public scandals to a $44 billion social media gamble, Musk's empire will be tested like never before. And what he did next might just be his most audacious move yet. Title card. Here, it gives me title card, and then it gives me a section by section outline. Nothing super fleshed out in terms of the section by section outline, but I would say that the first 60 to 90 seconds was actually pretty good. Now I want to see how Claude does. Once again, paste in the same prompt, and let's see what it gives us. So interestingly enough, Claude also gave me 3 options in terms of the very first line, and let's see the complete hook. 3 times, Elon Musk has stood on the edge of complete financial ruin. 3 times, he clawed his way back up to the top. But his latest gamble wasn't about electric cars or space exploration. It was about something far more dangerous, the power to control human conversation itself. Within 24 hours of taking control, he'd fire half the company. Within a week, advertisers were fleeing. The platform that once shaped elections and revolutions was hemorrhaging $4 million a day. This is the story of a man who refuses to accept the word impossible, who built the world's most valuable car company without knowing how to make cars, who created a private space program from his living room, and who bet everything he'd built on a 15-year-old social media platform. But this time was different. This time, it wasn't just his fortune on the line. It was his legacy. So this hook on the surface actually looks okay, but even just reading it, you can see that some of the words are even bigger. Hemorrhaging, shaped elections, and revolution. Some of the words are bigger and harder to say, kind of on a voiceover, and it's not as simple for the viewer to digest. And you can see here, it takes the control angle and firing half the company and the story of Twitter as part of a big chunk of the hook. But I don't personally think that is the most interesting part of the story. And I would have actually used some of the earlier parts of his story inside the hook, like GPT-5 did. But so far, I'm not super impressed with what Claude has given me. But for the section by section outline, you can see, okay, it gives me chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, act 2, chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7, and act 3, the fall, chapter 8, production hell, chapter 9, the breakdown, chapter 10, market manipulation, chapter 11, act 4, chapter 12, chapter 13, chapter 14, chapter 15, 16, 17, and you can see that it's a lot more longer, which I actually think is a lot more impressive, and it does a better job at doing that compared to GPT-5. So far, hook with GPT-5 is actually winning, but Claude is actually winning in terms of how detailed the outline has been in terms of following the hero's journey and the 5-act structure. Now let's use the same prompt for NotebookLM and see what it gives us. Man, NotebookLM is awfully slow compared to Claude and GPT. Okay, so let's read what NotebookLM has given us. Option 1, he built rockets to Mars and revolutionized electric cars. But in the depths of controversy, many believed his empire was over. The question wasn't if he'd fall, but how spectacularly. Option 2, what does it take to lose billions in a single day, endure public humiliation, and still emerge to redefine the future? For Elon Musk, it was just another Tuesday. Option 3, for a visionary outcast to the brink of bankruptcy to a titan shaping humanity's destiny. This isn't just a biography, it's a raw, unfiltered journey through the meteoric highs and near fatal crashes of Elon Musk. So you can see here, this first chunk is 0 to 8 seconds, but even as I'm reading each of these sections, it feels like it's closer to like 15 seconds, probably, and these sections are super duper long. And the same problem kind of emerges that we see in the first demonstration of NotebookLM. It's that the words are really complicated, right? Endure public humiliation, redefine the future. Here, destiny, biography, unfiltered journey, meteoric highs, and near fatal crashes. All of these words are pretty big and generally words that I want to avoid when I'm writing an educational script. But you can see here, NotebookLM does actually a pretty good job at writing the section by section outline. It's pretty in-depth. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, right? Ascent, disruption, and dream building. Part 5, the fall, crisis and controversy, public controversies, the setbacks, the resurgence, and Exo Twitter saga, demand and the mission, a deeper look. And it does a lot more in-depth deep dive, just like Claude did. Now let's see how each of these models do when it comes to fleshing out the script. So I'm going to use this prompt. Now I developed the main body sections for my documentary, The Rise and Fall and Rise Again of Elon Musk. Transform my outline into a script that balances technical explanation with engaging storytelling, maintaining viewer retention while delivering key information. So I gave it some information, background and context, main narrative sections, technical elements, execution and impact, tension and engagement techniques, and visual integration points, among other instructions. So let's see what GPT-5 gives us. And once again, GPT-5 is pretty fast. You can see over here, right? It gives us the narrator of voiceover, gives us the specific cues, right, in each specific section. And it really gives us the specific stock footage that, it thinks that we should be using. And interestingly enough, it doesn't flesh out the full script. It just gives the first main body section. Now I want to see how good it is actually writing the script and whether it's actually something a human would write. In 1995, after stints in Canada and at the University of Pennsylvania, Musk moved to Silicon Valley. The dot-com boom was in full swing. His first company, Zip2, provided maps and business directories to newspapers years before Google Maps was even an idea. That sale made him a millionaire, but more importantly, it gave him capital. And in tech, capital is oxygen. Without it, your big ideas suffocate. With it, you can take a risk that others won't. Musk's next bet, X.com, wasn't just another online bank. Imagine trying to send money across country in the 90s. It was like mailing cash in an envelope and hoping it arrived. X.com aimed to change that instantly, securely, anywhere. And at first glance, there's actually nothing wrong with this script. But it must be noted that, it writes it in section by section. It looks like the output for GPT-5 isn't as long as Claude and NotebookLM because the outputs in general for GPT-5 is a lot lower. So that means the context window is still similar to GPT-4. That's why it potentially isn't as great at writing super duper long form scripts. Now let's test the same prompt on Claude. So let's just read it real quick. To understand how Elon Musk became the most polarizing figure of all time, we need to go back to where it all began. Not in Silicon Valley bedrooms or Tesla factories, but in the suburbs of Pretoria, where a 9-year-old boy was teaching himself computer programming. 1980, while most kids his age were playing with toys, Elon Musk was really obsessed with the future. He'd read science fiction novels cover to cover, and he'd immediately start again. Isaac Asimov, Robert Heinlein, Arthur C. Clarke, these weren't just stories to him, they were blueprints. But genius in childhood comes with a price. Elon was relentlessly bullied at school. Once a group of kids trimmed down a flight of stairs and beat him unconscious, he spent 2 weeks in the hospital. So here, I actually prefer kind of the outline that Claude gives because it starts from the very beginning of Elon Musk's story, which generally is the aim with these documentary stories. So I actually like this quite a little bit better. And you can see the outline is actually a lot more fleshed out just from a single prompt, and you can see it's still going and still going. So it's pretty much just going to write the whole script in one prompt, whereas with GPT, you have to prompt it multiple times. And for NotebookLM, let me read a brief section of it. From the chaotic early days of Silicon Valley to the boundless expanse of space, one figure has consistently defied convention, ignited industries, and provoked controversy: Elon Musk. Before we delve into his dizzying heights and precipitous falls that define his journey, it's crucial to understand the landscape he inherited and the audacious vision that set him apart. So once again, not a big fan of NotebookLM because you can see that the writing isn't super simple. You can see that the writing is using very big words, and it's really hard to follow. So in terms of writing scripts, I would say GPT 5.0 is a clear winner for writing educational scripts because the hooks are punchy and the structure of the script is actually following a logical sequence for what a YouTube video that I would write be. And the actual writing of GPT 5.0 seems to be more in my voice compared to Claude and NotebookLM. And for writing documentary scripts, GPT-5 is a lot closer in terms of writing engaging hooks. But for writing the actual body of the script, Claude is a lot more efficient and also a lot more accurate because its context window is a lot bigger, so the output can be a lot longer. It can be thousands and thousands of words, whereas it seems like GPT is limited, just like its previous models. And for NotebookLM, it seems like the writing is still overcomplicated. It's using really big words, and I honestly wouldn't really touch NotebookLM in terms of writing scripts. And also as a side note, just playing with these 3 different models, I can see that GPT-5 is a lot faster, the processing speed is a lot faster, whereas Claude takes a little bit of time to think, and NotebookLM is really the slowest in terms of giving me outputs. Plus, the input window in terms of how long the prompt is for NotebookLM is limited. I'm curious to hear what you guys think in terms of what models is the best for YouTube script writing. Comment down below on which model you think is the best. And if you want the specific prompts that I use in this video for writing educational scripts and documentaries, click the link in the description and I'll send it to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.